controlled this area during those almost 500 years. That is why the Wananchi transformed the known Bachwezi into Ulubares, small gods. These are Mukasa, called Mugasha by the Banyankore, Wamala, Mujenyi, Ndahora, Kagoro, Isimbwa, Chomya, etc. The area was united politically. Buganda, Bunyoro, Ankore, Toro, Buchiri. Buchiri, that's what we call Lango. Lango is called Buchiri. Busoga, as well as the surrounding areas that were put in the other sister African states by the colonial borders. During this time, the wealth creators, and I would like to enumerate them. Who is the creator of wealth? These were cattle keepers, known as Avarisa in one of the dialects, crop farmers, Abahingi, blacksmith, Abahesi, backcloth makers, Abakomaji, carpenters, Ababayizi, clay workers, Abanogozi, bow and arrow makers, Abatanaji, lake and water specialists, Abadimbi, healers, Abafumu, surgeons, Abajenji, foretellers or prophets, Abaraguzi. We even had funeral service providers called Abahisi, fishermen, Abajubi, etc. could operate peacefully during that time, it seems. On account of some unclear reasons, this empire collapsed around 1400 AD. And the smaller kingdoms that we know succeeded this united political unit and came with the endless wars, Entaro, raids for cattle, Kunyaga, fomented by these smaller kingdoms and their myopic managers. The wealth creators were disturbed by these activities. God always mercifully helps Africa. Having lost the hieroglyphic writing of ancient Egypt, our ancestors in the Great Lakes depended on oral history. However, some natural phenomena help us to date events that would otherwise have been difficult to determine. Such a phenomenon, by divine command, was the eclipse of the sun of Wirakabiri that occurred on the 17th of April, 1520 AD at Ebiharwe, mile 9 from Barara on Masaka Road. When the eclipse occurred, the Munyoro king, Olimi Ruitamahanga, as well as his army, fled in terror and abandoned the large herds of cattle he had raided from Rwanda. The Banyankore took these cattle, and they are known as Empenda Yamunoni, whose translation is not clear to me, or Endugahaiguru, easier to translate because it means gift of heaven. Banyankole just took advantage of those cows, which this Munyoro king had stolen from Rwanda. The ruler of Ankole at that time was Nyabugaro, who was number 4 in the post-Bachwezi dynasty. The ruler in Buganda was Nakibinge, who was later on killed by the same Olimi Rutamahanga. That Rutamahanga is translated as destroyer of neighbors. This is what these kingdoms were doing, causing war among ourselves, and those little tyrants praise themselves. This is just one example of how these post-Bachwezi rulers were disturbing the peace of the wealth creators in this part of the world. The capitals of the Bachwezi that are known are Ntutsi and Bugobyamjenyi, both in Sembabule district. And the archaeological items from there have been dated by Professor Sutton as having been used between 900 AD to 1350 AD. Whatever man sows, that is what he reaps, the Bible says. The small kingdoms could not survive when the imperialists arrived. Even in the colonial times, tribalism encouraged by the small kingdoms continued, now reinforced by the new divisions on behalf of God, fomented by the newly introduced religions of Catholicism, Protestantism, and Mohammedanism. It is a tragic comedy to read what Captain Lugard wrote about events here in Uganda in the 1890s. In a booklet entitled British East Africa, on page 13, Lugard writes as follows, in quotes, "A warm discussion arose on many points, but I waived discussion till the reading was done. Then the chiefs were for signing, but the king here they mean Mwanga, but the king held back and giggled and fooled." That's how Lugard is describing the king, giggling and fooling. He demanded time. Mwanga wanted more time. I replied by rapping the table. Lugard is rapping the table. I replied by rapping the table and speaking loudly, said he must sign now. On December 26, Mwanga signed the document. Here, Lugard was talking about how he forced Mwanga to sign some documents giving away Africa's sovereignty. These were the actors guarding our destiny at that time. On page 18, Lugard writes about more tragic comedy. He writes as follows, in quotes, "Next morning, early, I found the whole country under arms for war. Masses of armed men were pouring in every direction and preparing for battle, being drawn up on opposite hills. The French party, as the Catholics are always called, the Catholics were being called Wafaransa, the Catholics here in Uganda. They were being called the Catholic Party, having, I think, the French flag. In quotes. On page 32, it is written as follows. The next day, Sunday, February 24th, while Captain Lugard was reading a letter, war drums rang out from the Catholic camp, and the two parties were arranged for battle. On page 41, it is written, and in quotes, as in his negotiations with the Catholic Party, so in those now going on with the Mohammedans, Captain Lugard was much annoyed and obstructed by the grasping selfishness of the Protestants who, while anxious enough for peace to be concluded, wished to retain everything for themselves. This is all recorded by these foreigners who were here at that time. These events were taking place around 1890. The other party being referred to as the Protestant party, known as Ingereza, the English. These new religions, starting with Islam, had started coming to this area since the 1840s. The Christians all had started arriving in 1877 for the Protestants and 1879 for the Catholics. By this time, Mutesa I was still alive. And indeed, he at one time wondered whether the Protestants and the Catholics worshipped the same God. He said, you people, do you worship the same God? Then why are you fighting? This was Mutesa now, a man who was a traditional believer, wondering about these wonderful Christians, the way they were behaving. The quarrels between Bishop Tucker and Father Lodell, whom I think they call Mapera, amused Mutesa. In the book by Bishop Tucker, entitled 18 Years in Uganda, East Africa, on page 9, he writes as follows, in quotes, We were not interrupted by them, however, until prayers were over, and I began to read the scripture. I had read only the first verse when Mutesa, this is Mutesa 1, not the Mutesa, the later one. When Mutesa, in his usual abrupt style, called to a coastman, these are the Swahili, people who are coming from the coast, from East African coast, called to a coastman present to ask the Frenchmen, if they don't believe in Jesus Christ, why they don't kneel down with us when we worship him every Sabbath. Do they worship Jesus Christ? Now this is Mutesa now looking at these Christians who had come to convert him, but conducting themselves in such a bad way. It is so sad to see brothers and sisters agreeing to be torn apart by external influences in such a manner and after such a short time as to act against their own interests, such as peace, wealth creation, etc. All these interfere with the wealth creators. It is therefore very important for the NRM to continue to crystallize this focus on the wealth creators, farmers, industrialists, crucial service providers, e.g. medical and ICT. Those who seek power and influence, kings, priests, politicians, etc., should have the sensitivity to ensure that their activities should never interfere with the work of the wealth creators. There was rinderpest in 1893 when a lot of cattle died in the Ankole-Kigezi area and maybe in other parts of the world. My great-grandfather, Kashanku, managed to save 7 cows from that rinderpest on account of their strong immunity. By the time he died around 1915, those cattle had multiplied. My grandfathers, who were never in the government, continued to multiply those cattle. Our fathers, who were never in the government, continued to multiply those cattle. I have continued to multiply these cattle along with my children, many of whom are not in the government. It is us, the crop farmers, the cattle keepers, the fishermen, the manufacturers, the service providers, the artisans that feed the country and provide other goods needed, that earn foreign exchange for the country, that create jobs, that pay taxes, etc. The attitudes of the wealth creators are actually captured in the 4 NRM principles of patriotism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and democracy. Genuine wealth creators cannot believe in sectarianism because their economic activities will have exposed them to the importance of the market of a united Uganda. They soon also understand the importance of the wider African market. In other words, the importance of Pan-Africanism. Here in Kampala, I have two testimonies, that of James Murwana and that of Brahim Kibirige, both the late. Brahim Kibirige died recently. Neither of them was in politics. However, Murwana was always fundraising for the NRM because he well understood that it is only that force that could guarantee peace in Uganda and render her safe for business. After Murwana is the one who told me to fundraise for the party. I was not conscious about that myself. But before the 1996 elections, he came and brought money. He had received it from somewhere. So this is for the elections. He was not a politician. He was not standing. Murwana had been in UPC before, together with the Benaisas, but he had gone into business. But he understood the linkage between business and a capable force to guarantee peace in the country. NRM also had private sector friendly policies, like the ban we imposed on the export of used batteries, which was what Murwana asked me to do for his company, so that he gets batteries to recycle. Murwana only asked me one favor, said, please ban the export of used car batteries. And I banned them. And that was all. Murwana could now get all the batteries and recycle them. One time, I had gone to Hotel Africana for a meeting. Brahim Kibirige was worried. I found him there. When I inquired from him what the problem was, he told me the problem was that the Basongora herdsmen in Kasese had poisoned and killed lions in Queen Elizabeth National Park in revenge for lions eating their cattle. Kibirige was worried that that act would damage tourism. You see, this is the difference between wealth creators and parasites. Kibirige is here in Kampala, but he's worried with what is happening in Queen Elizabeth National Park. Why? Because he owns a hotel and he wants successful tourism, and tourism will not be successful if some people are poisoning lions in the national park. This is the difference between the wealth creators and the parasites. The idlers, those who don't do anything, they don't care about what happens in the country. In fact, they may want confusion so that they can loot. So that's why the NRM should keenly study these two groups. As you know, he built a hotel in Moroto, Karamoja. Before he died, Ibrahim Kibirigi had built a hotel in Moroto. His concerns were national, and his investments were national. And I hear, even Pan-Africanists, I heard that he had invested even in other African countries. He understood the usefulness of Uganda and Africa. When they were burying Ibrahim Kibirigi, I didn't go. I don't want to attend these burials in this time of Corona. But I saw people talking. I never heard anybody talking about this. After one of them was talking about the clan. One of the people was on that function. The importance of Kibirigi was not the clan he came from, because there are many clans, people who are just doing nothing. The importance of Ibrahim Kibirigi was that he had got spectacles which could see value in a united Uganda, a united Africa. That was Ibrahim Kibirigi. Since nobody said that at that burial which I saw, I'm now saying it, because I'm here now. As we go on, the difference between wealth creators and parasites would become clearer. The ranks of the wealth creators are going to be swelled by the parish development model and by the Emyoga programs. These plans are aimed at converting the remaining 39% of the homesteads from the Okora Echida Kyonka, Okoro Rubuto subsistence farming to commercial farming and other money-generating enterprises with Echibaro, Chura, Aymar, Otita, proper enterprise selection. They all must join the ranks of the wealth creators. It will improve our politics, incomes for homesteads, purchasing power for buying products of goods or services produced by our factories, create a wider tax base, creating more jobs for the youth, and being able to support the places of worship, the churches and the mosques, and the political actors of choice better. In a place like the United States, you don't get politicians giving money to people to vote for them. It is the other way around. Supporters give money to the candidate they support because they want him to go and fight for some positions. Some want him to go and fight for abortion. They give him money, you go and fight for abortion. Others are homosexuals, they want to go and him fight for homosexuals. They give him money because they have money, whatever their problems. Here it is the reverse. Politicians are the ones giving what they call money, which is meaningless. 2,000 shillings in 5 years, of what value is that? So, emphasizing the issue of wealth creators. In conclusion, I seem to detect a linkage between wealth creation with patriotism and Pan-Africanism, and idleness with parasitism, working for foreign interests, and anarchism. Mao Zedong had detected something similar in China. That is why he talked of the unity of the four social classes, including the national bourgeoisie and isolating the comprador bourgeoisie, those whose economic interests were in service of foreign interests. I think the four positive classes in Mao Zedong's strategy were the national bourgeoisie, the workers, the proletariat, the peasants, and the patriotic petty bourgeoisie, such as teachers, health workers, etc. The feudalists and the comprador bourgeoisie were the parasitic group. The wealth creators support peace because they do not want their economic activity to be disturbed, and when they decide to fight, it is for a big reason, like when we decided to fight Idi Amin, because he had no capacity to understand patriotism or Pan-Africanism, which are crucial for our survival and prosperity. In 1970, I decided to work with UPC, although we did not fully agree on all issues. However, with UPC, there was some possibility to push for some wealth creation efforts, e.g. restructuring the ranches, and also some Pan-Africanist efforts, e.g. the East African Federation. To consolidate peace durably, expand and strengthen the ranks of the wealth creators, we must ensure that the wealth creators are more in number. Right from the beginning, the NRM emphasized the point of protecting life and property. It was actually point number 2 in the 10 points program. And it is principle number 3 in the 4 principles of the NRM, which is socio-economic transformation. You cannot transform society without wealth creation. The NRM returned the properties of the Indians because the country was using their entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurship of these Indians to contribute to the transformation of our society. Let everybody embrace wealth creation and the principles and strategies that support it, which are patriotism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and democracy, and avoid idleness, dependency, and parasitism. I congratulate the Operation Wealth Creation for, in the last 8 years, helping us to reduce abakorera ichida kyonka, subsistence actors, from 68% of the households to now 39%, according to the latest UBOS survey. Let us use the parish model, parish development model, or the Myoga program to convert all these into operators in the money economy with Echibaro. The USA, which is a new country, this powerful country called United States, is a new country. You hear, in this speech, I was telling you that in 1520, our little kings who are running around here, we are busy fighting one another and disturbing us. At that time, the United States was not there. There was no country called United States of America. Yes, Columbus had just arrived, 1492, 94, Columbus had arrived in the New World. But by this time, when our little kings were causing trouble here, there was no United States. It was in 1623 that the first group of people from Europe went to the US, almost 100 years from the time of our little kings, the ones I quoted, who were causing trouble here. The USA, which is a new country, only born long after our own fratricidal actors of 1520 AD in the persons of Olimi, Ruitamahanga, Nyabugaro, and Nakibinge, is now a superpower. This new country, which was created long after our little kings here, is now a superpower. Why? Partly for the very reasons I have been telling you in this speech. Respecting the wealth creators, creating a big market for them through integrating the former British colonies into the nucleus of the USA in 1776, ensuring peace, etc. The NRM always believes in reconciliation. However, reconciliation must be around healthy principles that can create growth and transformation, not stagnation and sterility. Let us not repeat old mistakes. Africa has suffered enough. The future is bright if we act right. I congratulate everybody and wish you a prosperous 60th year of Uganda's independence. I thank you.